2:30-ish. I don't know if this will populate. Don't know how many people we have online today. But I've been MIA for a couple of days, so I wanted to come on and say hi. So I will leave this for y'all to find later if you all don't make it in now. So how many, I would say that everybody's kind of wondered where I've been, especially with this Gabby Perdido thing going on. And honestly, I don't really have a perspective about it. I don't believe I have enough context of either person that's missing. As I don't have a good baseline of who they are. I only see like a presentation they give on social media. So I don't have a good baseline of them speaking, even when they're speaking with the officer where the body cam was released. They're very almost choreographed and scripted. Because they were trying to present the best side of themselves. So I don't really have a perspective on that yet to say, other than something seems very fishy because where'd the boy go? No, where'd the boy go? I mean, where'd the boy go? Because I think now they've found that she was in a hotel room for a few days and he was somewhere else, but they're still, we don't know what's going on. So, you know, there's a couple of scenarios, you know, either he did this or someone else did this, and then when they thought he may know something, they've got him too. Who knows what's going on, but I don't think at this time I have a good baseline of either person individually to watch their behavior and try to pull out like body language or nonverbal cues. So I've not really made a decision about how I feel about that case yet. I've not really seen enough for myself to make that decision. When I do, I will let y'all know. And with everything else, just like there's not really been any new police information in the Wells case. Not enough to speak of, to be quite honest. So I've not said anything about that. But I have been doing kind of these little tiny micro social experiments on my channel. If you're watching my videos, I'm trying to learn how to communicate and to show you all how I process information that I get and how I try to understand how I process and what filters it goes through. And if you'll notice, when I start talking about filters in current news events, though I'm just showing you how I process, and most of them I haven't made my mind up on yet, you will start to see the hate trickle in. And that is a natural response right now because of the way that we have created our societal interactions. So while I'm actually seeking communication and communication skills with this other side that seems to attack and then run, I'm reaching out and saying, here, let's build a bridge, let's talk, let's communicate, let's fix this problem. I would rather have questions that are that can't be answered than answers that I can't question. So let's talk, let's share. And I'm not getting a very good response. I'm getting a lot of hate. So if I deviate from either true crime, where you all think I shine, which is weird because I'm not a true crime channel, or if I deviate from the funny stuff and I actually talk about serious psychological issues that I feel are going on, like a mass psychosis in the United States, and how do we talk about this from both sides, I get like immediately attacked. And it's funny to see that people come on YouTube and they think that they can dictate who is on the other side of the screen, as if I don't give you my energy, you will no longer make these videos. Well, honey, do you think I woke up and said, I think somebody in Michigan or somebody in Washington State is sending me the energy to make this specific video and I'm going to do this for them? No, everything I do is intrinsically valued by me. Hi, Stella. And so, I never get on YouTube and I watch people's videos and think, you can't make that. I'm going to tell you right now, we're done. I'm not watching anything else of you because I disagree with that one point. And I've never watched, I watch YouTube channels all the time. I hate this shirt. Oh, bless their heart. Well, it's something I want to talk about. Like they're not going to chase me off. So I want to be here and I want to talk about this. I want to understand how to communicate. Or if they have no communication skills, then I want to show that. But I really hope that I can find somebody that can communicate, because I really I'm trying to show you all how I go through these things and how I check myself and how I understand my own bias. But I want you all to start exercising these things too, because the only way to understand someone else is to truly understand yourselves. And so if we can understand the bias that we have and how we've developed that bias and how we can be aware of that bias, then we can kind of look at stories from different vantage points and say, okay, I see what I'm doing. Perhaps someone else is seeing it like this, but we can talk about it like this and have that conversation we need to have. All the back and forth about this virus and everything, there's no need for back and forth. You can go on the CDC tracker and you can track everything. Rates that increase during a week, rates that drop, vaccine population, unvaccinated population. There's no need to argue with people. The data is on the internet. And as far as ICU beds and hospital beds going to COVID patients only, you can go on Johns Hopkins, just Google Johns Hopkins weekly hospitalization trends, and it'll pop up. You can go to any county in any state and look at the hospitalization trends. But I will tell you that where they're controlling the language is that right now, even if you have 2 shots, but it's not been 2 weeks since you were shot, you're not considered vaccinated. So you have to be 2 weeks post your 2 shot or your 2nd shot to be considered fully vaccinated. So there are a lot of people that are hospitalized with 1 shot or just after the 2nd shot that are marked as unvaccinated because they haven't passed that 2-week barrier. So you still have to understand the language and how they're compiling the information and what data sets they're using to understand the graph. And you have to read that very carefully because they're very tricky, very tricky. But you can go and look for yourself across the whole country. Like if somebody's saying, oh, hospital beds are at a shortage in this specific county and this specific state, go. Look for yourself. Don't depend on other people to tell you the truth. Go look for yourself. But like I said, I would rather have questions that genuinely can't be answered as to see the answers and not be able to question them. That's kind of makes me feel really weird to be in America and go, I have a question. Oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. And if you do, you're a horrible person. And I'm like, that's not the way the interactions are supposed to work. That's not the way the information flows. So it seems like, they're trying to put a hiatus on the flow of information, communication, and basically, trying to see us all as varmints. Now, I did a video the other day just briefly talking about the kulaks, and it was my little car vlog where you rode with me. If you go down in the description, there is a link to the after-school video that they did with Jordan Peterson expressing the story of the kulaks, which is almost exactly what we're seeing right now in the USA. Go figure. So everybody's saying history doesn't repeat itself or we couldn't have been prepared because nothing like this has ever happened. It has happened. It just has different instigating factors when it occurs. So great video. You should go watch it. A lot of information. It kind of makes you learn to check yourself because understand your bias. And the video brings up a very, very blatant point about either being a perpetrator or a victim. When we view the world as if we're either perpetrator or victim, then if we put ourselves in the victim category, then anything we do can be justified. But what person's going to put themselves in the perpetrator category? I mean, what person actually thinks they're evil? Very few will actually admit it. So everybody's going to go in the victim category, and therefore you're going to justify everything you do. I have to look at things I do and go, okay, was I too aggressive there? Was I being a turd? Did I overstep bounds? And sometimes I have to back away. But I predominantly feel like I have a pretty well-rounded view of what's going on in this nation, and I understand the psychology behind it. And it is the fear threshold being shoved down your throat to the point where you will attach yourself to anything that you feel is leadership because you see none around you. So when you see anything that is projected as any kind of leadership, you latch onto it because leadership is so lacking right now. And so I call it the sinking ship scenario. All the rats on the ship see it going down, they're seeing the water come up, and they're just looking for anything that will float. And that's kind of what everybody in the U.S. is doing right now. And we're grabbing, a lot of us are gravitating to the wrong things. So it's definitely a scenario that I'm watching closely, and I'm watching the interactions. I'm watching a lot of the protests, a lot of the rallies. I'm watching a lot of the protests in Australia that are occurring, which have a completely different social tone to them. It's very it's very heart-wrenching to watch. It's very difficult to watch. But if you don't get anything from me today, get this from me. CDC COVID tracker, go all over the U.S., every county, every state, and then the Johns Hopkins hospital weekly trends, hospitalization weekly trends. You can look up all the ICU beds, all the COVID beds, non-COVID, and regular beds and ICU beds, and see the influx or decrease throughout the week. And if I looked back throughout the last year, and it's funny because we've seen the largest spikes since the vaccine has come out. So I'm curious to see how this progresses, because I have so many questions that I can't get answered, because I have answers that I find online with data that nobody will let me question. And I'm just sitting here going, is that how we're working now, America? Is that what we're doing now? Because it's not working. So I'm very concerned. But the reason you've not seen much of me this week, we had the electrical power lines being replaced, and then I helped my mother with my granny, and then my daughter surprised us with a visit from college this weekend. So she's resting right now, and I'm taking advantage of a quiet house. A lot of people ask me what I'm reading when I rotate books. Right now I'm reading Fred Grove, The Years of Fear. It's a Western. It's kind of a fiction, but it's got a little bit of nonfiction thrown into it. I like Westerns. The next one I'm reading is To the Last Breath, 3 Women Fight for Truth Behind a Child's Tragic Murder. It's by Carlton Stowers. And this one's got a lot of great perspectives about abuse, especially family, kid abuse. I read this I read this book once every couple of years. Temple Grandin's the way I see it. Temple Grandin is got a brain like none other. She's given us the best glimpse into the autistic brain, the brain that is on the spectrum that we will ever have, and we need to take advantage of it. And then I grab random old books and read them. This is Sketches of Lake Wawasee. And it literally is just information and old photographs from back in the day. So I like to read stuff like that. I've got a couple others that are in rotation, but they're heavy psychology books, and I think y'all will be interested in those. But I'll probably bring up some points from them in the next video or two that I make. Trying to focus heavily on healing after trauma and abuse, and understanding the neurological deficits that come after trauma and abuse, and understanding epigenetics and how everything filters in and affects us, because it's very confusing if you try to listen to somebody that is like, you know, trying to sound, you know, I'm so smart and I want you to know I'm so smart. And I'm like, buddy, you could have told that in a much simpler way where you would have had a larger audience. So what I'm doing is trying to give you knowledge in a simpler format to where it can be absorbed by more people. That's my goal. That's what I'm doing. So that's probably what I'm going to do in the next couple of videos. I may, if I get more videos and more input on the Gabby case, I may do a video about that, but I'm not like 100% on that, because as I said, I don't believe there's enough video of them as a baseline individual personality that's not being presented for social media or portrayal to the cops that we're not having a problem. I just need to see baseline how they behave so I can look for body cues and things that are different. And I don't think I've got a good enough understanding of either of them. But has anybody noticed how crazy the world's going with people doing horrible things to other people? Like, the magnification of assault or abuse is like off the scales. And it's not even just toward other people. I mean, if you're looking at self-harm, it's off the scales. And I mean, what can be expected when we're starting to denigrate the human being and put everybody in categories and deplete their worth and shove them in, you know, these little tribes, and then tell them their worth and how they're worth to their country and their community, you know, and have late night comedians try to dictate who should live and die in a hospital setting. I mean, stay in your lane, Bubba. You know, stay in your lane. But the things that are being said that have got a stamp of approval by a large swath of the population, it scares me. It terrifies me to see people be able to form those words and just nonchalantly say them as if they were speaking about a broke down vehicle on the side of the road. So you know that this transition from Healthcare is should be a universal thing because healthcare is a human right. And now we're at, you don't even deserve to be triaged unless you've done what I think you need to do. And so my question is, if you were able to be flip-flopped so quickly in about a year, what else can you be talked into? That's my concern, because I like consistency in people. Consistency shows me that you think, you resolve, you use critical thinking, you use rational logic, you look at things, you sit back and you make a pretty good assumption about where you belong and how to belong there without causing harm to others. And that's what I think a good logical person is. But I'm not seeing those skills being used in a certain sect of the public, and it terrifies me, because this is language that has been used at the Roman downfall, the Kulak downfall, at the Holocaust. This is all repetitive stuff that we should identify and see coming. And now we're seeing, people that did scream that universal health care was a human right. Healthcare is no longer a human right unless you're what they deem you need to be. It's scary. It's terrifying. So if we've got that part of the population that can be steered so willingly and can change their mind so drastically in a year, how do we begin to communicate with somebody that can be picked and told how to believe and told how to instruct a belief upon their community? How do we communicate? I'm really trying to communicate. I want to communicate, but I'm not getting anything but hate back. And I do these lives because when I type out my questions, like I said in one of my other lives, like last Sunday, about and how many cities did Antifa burn down over the summer? And they're like, well, that's a gross misinformation. It was not Antifa. Okay. What you call a large group of people in Black Bloc that go out and do physical harm or property damage. And I put, that's not me being snarky either. That's an actual question that I would like an answer to. Because I need to understand your language so that we can communicate. If that's not what you call that demographic that's doing harm, tell me what you call them so that I can communicate with you with it. It wouldn't speak to me. They're done with me now. And I'm like, well, I don't cast people out that quickly. I mean, I watch tons of YouTubers, and I agree with none of them on 100% of everything. Some of them I agree on 33%, but I still like something they do, or some energy they give off, or some skill they have, so I watch them. Some I agree with 90%, and I watch them more. Snugglepuss, that's a cute name. But you're not going to agree with everybody to where you have carbon copies of yourself walking around in society. And that's not what society needs to rotate, to make the world go around, to keep things fresh and going and moving and fluid. Society needs to take these little meandering educational trips, but we don't need to shoot off over there and then, it should be an easier growth. So I'm just concerned about what I'm saying, and I'm concerned that I'm not getting any communication back. I'm concerned that it's absolute hate and disgust when I try to show you how I understand the way I think and how I try to understand my filters, my bias. Tell me how yours works. I'm telling you, is there not? I mean, it's like, who wound you up today? Because they cranked you about 4 or 5 times too many. And it's like they go out just seeking. They go out just seeking, and interaction is going to be negative. It's almost as if that is what really gets their motor going. And that's a shame, to think that the one thing that you look most forward to is negativity or hostility. What does that say? What does that say about your life mantra? What do you get up every day to do? Make your world a better place? Obviously not. So how do we start to talk about this? Because right now they are not eliciting any communication. Look what they just did to Nicki Minaj, bless her heart. And let me tell you, I agree about on 2% of what she does. And I have really no knowledge about Nicki other than I don't like the language she uses in her songs, and therefore I don't listen to her music. As a person, she should have every right I have, and have every power I have, and be treated as respectful as anybody else. But I agree with 2% of what what she does. But I still understand how she feels about all of this, and even as crazy as I think AOC is, I still understand how she feels, even though I think her thought process is very much convoluted and I have to watch myself and won't say something nice. I think she has a very tainted view of how she thinks society should work, and she doesn't have enough societal integration within herself as a young person to understand how communities work. And I've never seen her really address her constituents, do anything for her constituents. She's always on some big, huge, universal platform, and I'm like, you're there to represent your people, but I never see you in your district. So go to your district and talk to your people. I just really think she is out for the celebrity and the attention, and I think the Met Gala was a very good example of that. That's it, rose-colored glasses. That's absolutely it. I was going to say something far worse than that, and I had to stop myself. But at what point can you look at somebody and go, you are becoming that which you despise? Because, like, I was talking with one woman, and she was like, well, she had to go there. She had to go there to show these people how callous they're being to the rest of society, and she had to integrate and be there. I said, and she had to pose for pictures, smile, have a great time, do the media thing. I said, if she had marched in with a picket sign and a plain dress, I would have respected her choice to do that far more, rather than play the game. Well, she has to play the game in order to let them see how they behave themselves. I said, okay. I said, so you don't deer hunt, you don't like hunters. And she said, no, I don't. I said, okay, well, this year I want you to protest me. I want you to go get your hunting lodge, or go get your hunting license, and then I want you to go and buy a deer rifle, and then I want you to go out for deer season, and I want you to tag out. Now, if you only get one or two, that's okay. You'll still show me. You'll show me. But if you tag out, you might make me be a non-hunter. She goes, that doesn't make any sense. I said, no, it doesn't, does it? I said, so why was she in the middle of the Met Gala? I said, it impacted no one but herself. And I said, my concern was finances, purely finances, because she's not supposed to be spending taxpayer money on tickets like that. And then she said, don't worry, I didn't pay for it, and the dress was donated. Well, number one, the designer did an epic job. That's a beautiful dress. It was tailored perfectly. So my mom is a seamstress also, so I thought the dress was gorgeous. I don't have to agree with the messages on the dress. I don't have to agree with why she wore it. Although I think, we could have a huge tax discussion and make the world a better place. Hi, Priscilla. Priscilla's here with her wrench. But my big thing is, if it was given to her, did she report it? Did she pay taxes on it? And was it logged? Because those are all things that have to be reported when you have the job she has. 007. Hello. So I'm just like, did she do it the right way? Did she report it? So they've already requested that she be investigated. And I'm like, well, there you go. So, and I just don't understand how, they think celebrities can mix with politicians and we can say it's anything but a crooked game. You don't have to tell anybody. Hi, Denise. She'll sell it. I wondered that too. I wondered if it was something that the lady could take off and put it back in the shop. Because if that lady donated it, and yeah, she got a little bit of free advertising, but that's a lot of work for somebody that gives you nothing in return. That's a lot of work. So I would hope that she's able to recoup some of her money somehow. Oh, we're just talking about the hate I'm seeing in the world today. But also, now that I've got a few more in here, if you want COVID numbers, you want valid hospitalization information, and you don't want to depend on other people to tell you or depend on the news, then go to the CDC COVID tracker, and it will tell you all the ups and downs of every county and every state. Or you can go to you can Google Johns Hopkins weekly hospitalization trends, and it will show you graphs of what are non-COVID beds, COVID beds, and what are regular beds, ICU beds, what are being used, what are open. And I went and tracked through the last year on both sides, and oddly enough, we are in the worst epidemic right now after the vaccines. if the CDC did a report that said about 80% of Americans have at least one dose. So should we not be seeing some kind of reduction somewhere instead of a huge, like, 200% increase? Israel has got like almost 100% vaccination rate. And like only one person that was in their ICU was not vaccinated. And that was because they had like a medical issue that they couldn't get the vaccine. Everyone else was vaccinated. In the UK, they're seeing it happen too. And so I'm like, why are we not talking about these places? Why are we not saying this is not working? Why are we trying to push more when obviously we see the antibody dependent issue come up? Why are we not talking about this? And so if you're wondering if people are telling you the truth or not, just go on those two websites and you will know the truth immediately. And it seems like, and let me tell you the other thing that I tracked. It seems like every time, when Biden got in, the date of inauguration, they changed the PCR test. They said, don't make it so sensitive, drop it down to where it only detects this many levels now. And so you saw a huge decrease in cases because it wasn't as sensitive. Because it was picking up, it had a lot of false positives, and CDC opened up and said that. Too much money and power involved, absolutely. And I'm not knocking anybody that got the shot. It should be your decision. Everybody should have that decision. But you need to be able to get this information and not rely on other people to misinform you or mislead you. But I watched the trends over the last year, and then I wondered why there was this huge decrease right after inauguration. I was like, what is that huge, like a 200% drop? And I went and studied on the CDC. Well, January 20th, they told the PCR test to dial it down. Don't be super sensitive. Let's dial it down to here now. And they dialed it down. So obviously we had less testing positive because it was not as sensitive of a test. But then as soon as they got the vaccines out, we're spiking again. And so it's like, we need to have talks about this. We need to be able to have, our questions answered instead of having these answers that come out of nowhere that we can't question. It's not working. Yeah, I do a lot of research. People think I'm just a stupid redneck. I do a lot of research. I am on a lot of government pages tracking these things. Because I am one of the medically compromised. Because ever since I got this neuromuscular disorder and had all those knee and leg surgeries and gained a zip code on my hind end, and I was in a pepper spray event at a prison when I was a parole officer, and I had chemical pneumonia and I scarred my left lung. And I have a disorder that's very much like MS. So I'm paying attention because it makes, what I decide to do will have a great big bearing in my life. So, who said, did I say something or somebody else say something? So what I do is going to have a huge a great big bearing in my life. So I have to be absolutely positive that when I make my decision, I make the right one. Now, me and my doctor have talked about the new one coming out that is the Novavax, that is made after the old style of vaccines. He has said, I would prefer you wait for that because we don't know how your body, because I have a compromised immune system and I have the nerve disorder. If they take it down, they take it down. But we need to get information out. Even if it's just to 10 people right now, y'all can disseminate it. If they want to take me down, they can take me down. So I'm waiting to see what the numbers look like on the Novavax. And yeah, mRNA technology is 30 years old, but every time they try to go into animal testing, all the animals die. Like, within 12 months, all the animals are dead. That's why we haven't had anything before now for humans. And people go, well, it's FDA approved. Yes, but do you know that you're still in the clinical testing phase? Clinical testing is happening right now with the population being darted, and it doesn't stop until 2022 or the first of 2023. So we're still in clinical trials. So the trials you're tell me you've already done, no, they're taking place now, and information is fluid and growing on the CDC website. You can go to the WonderWeb, or you can go to VAERS reporting. And understand that VAERS reporting is often underreported by a large number. So I'm just trying to make everybody aware. Have a lot of information. Make the decision that's right for you with my health and my specific issues and the way that my immune system will over-attack things. Right now, it's not a feasible option for me to think that I could get it and nothing bad occur. I would have a better chance of battling an actual virus. And so I take precautions, and I don't go out a lot, and I stay close to home, and I Lysol and clean, and I try to be respectful about everybody else's boundaries, and I just try to coexist and cohabitate in a respectful manner that still allows me to live my life. And so far, knock on wood, I've done pretty good. It's rising everywhere, but every time we have a political issue, it rises everywhere. I mean, you can go back and track it on these websites I've given you, and you can see how it's almost being the dog that you could tell to heel anytime you needed it. It was there. And so I have questions and concerns, and I want real answers, and I'm not getting them, and we should be able to have these conversations. But y'all go back and, the way the language is changing, the way people are treating each other, the hostility, especially from people like Jimmy Kimmel, who's a comedian, is now wanting to dictate who can be triaged in the hospital. We are guinea pigs, absolutely. I mean, there are so many times that our government has experimented on citizens, if you go back and read about them all. But I should have a grave concern. I should be able to question this. I should say, but we've had those issues before, and we found out you did that. So I just want unlimited information and the ability to communicate. And when I ask questions and try to communicate, I don't want to be degraded for that. I don't want to be berated by somebody who has read 2 cut lines out of a newspaper and now think that they can go around and diagnose people and tell them how they should respond to this. Everybody's going to have a different response because we're all humans. We're going to have different feelings and different ideas about what's going on and what's being done, and if that's beneficial and if it's not, and how society's doing, and if it's bad or good, or if we need to see changes or we don't want to see changes. We're all different. Oh yeah. I do a lot. Like when I have to spend a lot of time on these cases or a lot of the information that gets me down, I have to take 2 days and just be silly and do laugh stuff and try to boost my morale again, because it gets so heavy. And I'm sitting here going, imagine these people that feed off of the heaviness that I don't want to have. And I'm like, how do they do it? What kind of life must they have to constantly want to be in that mindset? I mean, that's tragic. If you ask me, that's tragic. That's damaging. And so when I have to talk about these heavy things, then normally for the next 2 days, I do something silly or thought-provoking, to make me kind of tongue-in-cheek, because I don't like to stay in a bad place. I think everybody should just be able to just put a question out there, and somebody should be able to respond. And as adults, we should be able to ask questions and respond to questions without turning it into an argument. None of my questions are political because I don't trust any politician. I don't. By the time they reach the level of presidency, they're crooked as a dog's hind leg. And that's how I think. They've been through enough, and they know enough about our country and what's going on, that they have to be inclined one way or the other, so they're not really truly what I would think would be the right kind of person with the right mindset and heart to be in that position. And that's the way I feel about that. So I don't align with any political party. I don't trust them all. I'm not people always yell at me, you're a stupid Trumper. I am very upset with old Donny Boy, because he became a vaccine salesman before he became the president of the United States, before he left office. And I did not like that. I did not care for that at all. And he ushered in a lot of the loss of rights that we're still fighting with now. So no one's hands are clean on either side for me. But I'm just trying to comprehend what's going on. And I see society falling in almost the same exact ways that the Romans, the Kulaks, the Holocaust, it's all so similar in the strategy used to start to, to segregate and separate people, and to start with the language change to where you can feel very comfortable calling basically people vermin. And I'm like, I don't care if you're a murderer on death row. You're still a human with rights. There are limited rights because you're incarcerated, but you still have rights. And so, you know, one decision cuts how many people out of the human race for some people's mindsets. That's disturbing. That's disturbing. It's like I said a few minutes ago, how quickly they went from we should have universal health care because health care is a human right to you don't deserve health care or to be triaged at your hospital if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do. And it's just kind of scary. Yep. Yep, this is definitely a wedge issue, and it's a wedge issue so that we will focus on it and not what's going on in the presidency. This, you know, sometimes I think the presidency may be transactional. Let's see how I can say this and not get absolutely pulverized. Sometimes I think my accent helps because I don't think the bot can understand me. But let's just say that I'm playing Monopoly with one other person. And I've got a little dog that's red, white, and blue, and they've got a big wheelbarrow that's red. And I'm playing Monopoly with this person. And I've got this one little place that's not worth a whole lot, but everybody lands on it a lot. And the red wheelbarrow guy wants it. Well, give me what I want and we'll make a trade. You're allowed to trade Monopoly, right? So I'll give you this little spot right here, if you'll make sure I get this. And I believe we have just witnessed one of the largest transactions in world history. Oh, and I'll throw in $80 billion of this since I'm getting so much more land in control. I think we've watched one of the biggest transactions in world history. And it concerns me. Because nobody else seems to be concerned. And I'm like, we should be concerned about this. And they, you know, the people that were all rules, if you just make a fraction of a mistake or just step out of line, ding 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 007, I like the way your brain works. If you step out of line, you know, just a fraction over here, then, you know, we just immediately cut you off. I mean, you're gone. You're no longer part of society. We know, and it's just like that's not what our country was founded on, or how our country believes, or how our country is supposed to work. So I watched a family last night on YouTube that did a review. A mother, father, and 2 children did a review of the Star Spangled Banner. They had more respect for the flag than citizens here. Snugglepus said, it's a world where COVID is an experiment to depop. Yeah. Oh, there's always going to be something else. And until we understand that we are being manipulated through the fear threshold, and we've got to learn how to handle that fear. So because I see and understand the manipulation tactics, because, you know, I worked with a lot of people that were in trauma, so I have to understand how an abuser works. I have to understand what an abusive relationship looks like. And I've said for years that I'm in an abusive relationship with my government. I've put it all over the internet. It's wonder that somebody's not knocked on my door yet. But I could identify immediately what was going on. You know, and if you take the dynamics of just a little domestic abuse scenario and you just apply it to the nation, it's exactly what's going on. Are you questioning me? I thought you loved me. You don't love me? Well, you're not allowed to leave, because if you leave, I'll be mad. I'll be hurt. You'll hurt me. You have to stay here. I don't want you talking to him. You can't talk to him. No, you can't do that either. Really? Well, if you want to do that, I just can't love you, and I can't see you as a person that I want to be with. And it's just a complete hostile world takeover. And everybody's like, I have to appear, you know, compliant, and I have to appear as though I'm agreeing. You know, because I don't want, I think if I do that, they'll stop. If I give in to the pressure, they'll stop. They won't. Priscilla Wrench. So, I just want everybody to understand, you know, question everything. Even the things I say, question them, Do your research. Don't take anything flat from anybody. Do your research. COVID tracker on the CDC, and you can Google Johns Hopkins hospitalization weekly trends, and it'll pull up a graph. You can look at any county all across the U.S. to see how the beds are being used and if they're being run down. Now, hospitals run at capacity anyway because it's business. Yeah, well, and a lot of people don't know that the remdesivir that they're giving in the hospitals is still not FDA approved. So it's like you take this that's not approved or still has a lot of open-ended questions about longevity issues, or you go to the hospital and you get another questionable, and but if there were therapeutics that were available, then they wouldn't be able to get the emergency use order. So they don't want other plans of treatment. They want you to have to take one of two routes. And I don't understand if it's for financial gain, if it's something that's going to end up being a population issue, if it's something that's going to be, I don't know, just a pure control issue. So I'm sitting back, but, I look at these things, and when I see these little indicators, and they ping in my head, and I go, oh, that was manipulation. Like when he got on and said, my patience is wearing thin. Well, something that the leader of the free world should never say is that their patience is getting thin, they're tired of their own people. Because if that was a kindergarten teacher that said that, I would say, honey, you need to take a break. Perhaps you don't have quite the personality to handle people that are going to be questioning you or creating issues all day long, much as preschoolers and kindergartners will. But if I heard somebody that was in that position say, my patience is everything, I would be like, I'm concerned about that. That concerns me, because that shows me that you're allowing an emotion to dictate how you're going to respond. What else will you allow an emotion to dictate? That concerns me. So I look at it from, and yeah, I have a weird, I have a background in forensic psychology, and I have a background in corrections, and I have a background in counseling trauma victims. And so, yes, I see that side probably more predominantly than other people would. But it's something that benefits me greatly in day-to-day interactions with people. And so I thought, well, I will share these little insights. I will share this. And so okay, thank you, 007. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know time is precious. Thank you for stopping by. I just want everybody to be able, if you have a question or you are seeking information, I want you to be able to get those questions answered or get that information. And that goes for every person in our country taking in air. I want you to be able to get what you need to function and fulfill your curiosity and make good decisions for you. I don't want to make decisions for you. It's not my job. I want you to make decisions for you, and I want to make decisions for me. And I think that is historically accurate for America. So I'm just like, I want to see this work. I want to see communication start. But watch as the language changes. I mean, AOC's interview the other day about menstruating people, and I mean, she did not want to say the word women, and it's painful, because if someone at that level is speaking that way, then they have a huge following of people that also adapt to that vernacular. How do you communicate when they create their own language and you're behind the curve? And then when she starts saying things like, well, if you give them 6 weeks, it only means you're 2 weeks pregnant. No, AOC, it doesn't. You can get pregnant at any time. You can get pregnant the day after it's not likely, but the day after your period stops, you could get pregnant. I was fertile myrtle, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. And so, you can get pregnant through your, anytime there's an egg there, you can get pregnant. So it doesn't mean that you would just be 2 weeks out of, no, that's not the way that works, honey. Because when you shed, everything goes out and you start over. And then there's that whole month gap, basically that 4-week gap that you could, something can happen. It can occur at any time. There are people that get an egg fertilized and have 3 or 4 more cycles. I hate that word. Whew. And So all of this is just, I don't know, but it's very controlling of language and how we can respond to each other, how we can communicate. Um, if you know, if you're socially hip or you're not, and there's a lot of discrediting humanity by the people that used to be humanitarians. And I'm like, how do you switch that quickly? What changed your mind that quickly about humankind? Because last year, healthcare should have been universal. It should have been a human right. And now, they don't think you should get healthcare unless you do everything they tell you to do. You don't deserve it. You're vermin. You should rest in peace, Wheezy. And I'm like, how do we flip flop so quickly and be so comfortable? And is it that perhaps they've been making these emotional decisions all along, but now they're just voicing them? So I saw that. I couldn't read. Y'all, I'm getting me a bigger screen. I'm working on it. Because I read spirit, but I couldn't see the other word. So welcome. We're just having one of those weird discussions that I have. And like I said, anything I say, don't take it as absolute truth. Go do your research. Question everything anyone tells you, even me. That's the safest way to go through this world anymore. Question absolutely everything. Take nothing, just take it with a grain of salt and go on until you do your research on it. That's the way I am with everybody too. So I don't want you to come here and just swallow what I'm saying. I want you to come here and start thinking and communicate. And I like it when people that don't necessarily identify the same way I do, if I start to communicate. But then sometimes I have to remind them that screaming at me and calling me stupid is not communication. So, but I really think that if we find just the right group of people that are kind of the mindset's not all the way over there, that we can start to bridge the gap between the two versions of U.S. citizens that seems to be in the world today, and we can pull each other back together instead of being so polarized, because it's not healthy to live in a polarized manic state. It's not. And I'm not just talking about the left. The right has a polarized manic state as well. Have you met them? They're crazy. I had one come on YouTube last night and do he was a my color identitarian, and he was trying to use a lot of Christian language, and it rubbed me the wrong way because I understood the manipulation that he had rolling. It was full snake oil salesman, and I was like, ooh, 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 ooh. Can you not see that even though you all claim to be completely separate things, you're doing the same thing, just on different ends of the spectrum? But those that seek power don't often seek understanding. So it's just a confusing world right now. It's very confusing. It's very scary. Any kind of polarized view is very dangerous, very detrimental to society. And I had, yesterday when I went to the store, what I didn't tell you is I ran into a little man from Saudi Arabia and a black man from Georgia. And we were waiting in line at the dollar store because they only had one register open. And so we got to talking. And I had the best conversation with those two guys that I've had with anybody in months. And they were like, you're really nice. Most of the people around here we've met have been really nice. I was like, yeah, we're pretty good around here. He's like, yeah, solid people. He's like, I've been surprised. He's like, I was concerned because I've heard sketchy stuff about, backwoods. And I'm like, well, we're backwoods. We'll take you hog hunting and we'll fry up some tenderloin. But we'll also invite you into our home and treat you nice because, we generally like people around here. And he said, I've been surprised. He said, everywhere that, as a boy that I was told not to go, he said, I've had the best reception there. And I said, makes you wonder if maybe I should go everywhere they tell me I shouldn't go. And he said, you should. He said, you absolutely should. You'll understand this nation better. And I said, that's an absolutely great point. And I said, I'm glad I met you. And he said, I'm really glad I met you. And the guy from Saudi Arabia was very young, and the black man was probably maybe 10 years older than me. And we had the best conversation. We didn't agree on everything. I'm not going to ever meet anybody I agree with everything on. But we had the best conversation. And he was genuinely happy about rolling into a small backwoods town that had embraced him so well. Because he did not anticipate it. Because everything he had been told was polar opposite. But he rolled in and found out that everything he'd been told his entire life was actually not factual. And I'm like, Ding! We need to question those things more. Like I said, I would rather have a question that legitimately cannot be answered than have the answer that is given to me not be able to be questioned. That's concerning. It's very concerning to me. So that's what I want everybody to question everything, no matter what side of the line you're on. Question everything. Do your own research. And don't let anybody dictate, tell you what's going on, put you in fear. Sit back and go, why are you doing that? Why are you pushing me into an emotional response rather than a logical response? What do you want from me? You want me to react emotionally? Well, I'm not going to react emotionally now because you want that. So what are you trying to push me toward or away from? And so I look at people motive-based rather than I do interaction-based. And I have to deal with somebody for a while before I make my mind up about them, because you just have to feel them out for a while. So I deal with society in a much different way. Of course, I also supervise murderers, so I get to know people in different ways because of my training also. So, but I have questions and concerns, and I should be able to have them, I should be able to voice them, and I should be able to communicate with them, and I should be able to get something else in response besides hate. Because when somebody questions me in the core of what I see are my values and my ideology, I don't want to scream at them and make them run away from me. That benefits no one. I want you to understand what made me me, and understand that we're both human and we've had human experiences that have dictated how we perceive the world. And we can understand each other and we can talk. We can have a dialogue. No matter who is in power or who, or any congressman says or any congresswoman, we can communicate with each other and find something worthwhile in each other so that we can bond and benefit society. There's no reason why we should have to become a separated society. Oh, I love y'all too. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and like everybody wants to come on and like we're done with you. Till you went political, we were fine. Well, I don't go to YouTube and like, who am I going to give my energy to today, and who am I going to retract it from? Because the people on YouTube, they don't. Most of them don't wake up and go, well, I think Michigan's mad at me, and yet last week Wisconsin was too. So I think I need to make something about cheese and make them feel. No, it doesn't work that way. I don't get on here and wonder, what can I tell you that will make you want to be here, every day to give me a like and a click and put me in the algorithm? No. I'm like, what can I tell you that is going to help you through your life, benefit you long term, and potentially let you have a less emotional life, a more rational, logical life, and understand the momentum that could be causing you, to have an upset response to what's going on. I want you all to go through life with the tools to live a happy life. Good afternoon. And so that's what I want to do, because even though I talk about super serious stuff and sometimes I get on a tangent, I generally and every day I'm happy. I'm happy every day. And so I want other people to be happy. I don't like when I see people that are constantly mad and constantly upset, I know that they must be in turmoil, and I know that must be painful, and I know that it must be costing them a great amount of life experiences and interactions, and that hurts me because I hurt for them. So what tools can I toss out there that you can discern and use in any way you want to in your life, that you can learn to filter and understand perceptions and bias, and how to look at people, and how to understand when emotions are being played, and how to build a little bit of a boundary. Crossbow's going good. Husband's having to work all weekend, so we might shoot it a little bit in the morning. My daughter came home this weekend from college to visit, so that's why you haven't seen hiding her hair with me. I've been spending time with her, but I think she's wanting to shoot it before she goes back to school, so we might pull it out in the morning and shoot a little bit. And she's like me, she's a crack shot. So we'll see. Right now the women are leading in bullseyes. So I'm just gonna say. So we'll see. But now she's a crack shot like me. She's I tell everybody she's lethal. So I'm excited to let her have a round with it. But now my husband, he's working all weekend, but he has left us tomorrow morning because it's raining today. He's left us tomorrow morning, and he's like, we'll shoot it a couple times before she leaves. And I'm like, okay. So I probably will video it just so we have record actual witnessing record of the women and how they shoot. So it's been fun so far. I'd never, like, it's the Louis Vuitton of crossbows. It's an Excalibur. And I'm like, okay. But I'd always compound or recurve hunted, and so I'd never shot a crossbow. But now when I deer hunted hot and heavy, I had a 7mm. And then when I was younger, I had a 757. It was like an old German Mauser rifle. It was very nice, but I had to like sand down the handle because my hands were so small. Because I was like 12, 13 when I got it. So I predominantly hunt with a 7 mag. So I was raised, you know, we got up and we had chicken houses and we had farm and we had livestock, and we would have coyotes that come up and try to kill the calves and the babies. And so, you know, I woke up and we would run downstairs, and whoever got, you know, out the back door got the first crack at the coyotes that were still hanging around. I've been trying to watch the Gabby case, and like I said earlier, and I'll repeat it, I don't feel that I have a good baseline for just the normal behavior of either party to try to discern what's going on, what non-communication skills and kickers are coming at me. But I'm trying to keep a close eye on it, and as soon as I do have a viewpoint, I will definitely share it with y'all. yeah, this college experience has been expensive, but she's like always top of her class, so we knew if that was where she wanted to go, it was worth it because she would finish. So it's her senior year, so she will graduate in May. So we knew, because she cannot stand to not finish anything. And so we knew if she got in there, she would go clean through, and that's what she's done, because we know she will not stop. She will not finish anything. If she starts a book, she's like me. She has to finish it. And I think she just must have got it from me, because that's the way I always was. When I started something, I had to finish it. And that's what somebody was asking, what books I had in rotation. Fiction, but not always fiction. A Western called The Years of Fear. Temple Grandin's book, The Way I See It. If you have not read Temple Grandin's book, The Way I See It, you should read it. Because people that are autistic they don't have an emotional reaction. So often they can strip away the things that hinder everybody else. And it's great. It's great to have that feedback from somebody that thinks differently. My daughter is going to be a veterinarian, so she is in it for the long haul. But we need more good teachers, so tell your daughter, good choice. My mother was an educator for 21 years. To the Last Breath by Carlton Stowers. This is about 3 women's stories of abuse. And it's kind of heavy, but it gives a lot of great personal reactions and how they handled it and how they came out the other side. And then I pick up weird things. Like this is Sketches of Lake, is it Wawasee? I don't know how you say that. W-A-W-A-S-E-E. And I just like to pick up old books sometimes. I've got some really, really old books that I'll show you at some point. But it's just got really old pictures from like the 40s to the 60s of places that now look very different. And I like to Google Earth them and see the difference. I'm strange. But yeah, I like books. We have tons of books in this house. My husband gets very upset with me because I read 7 or 8 at one time, and he gets very upset with me because he's always tripping over books somewhere. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to check in, let you know that I was okay. I just have had my daughter home. It's been my health is still holding. I've rested more today because I was tired, but I've done more. Gave Oscar a haircut the other day, so he's naked. He's shaved. He's naked. It's his last full haircut before winter, so now everything else will just be trimmed. And you go ahead, you go rest. You're fine. You go right on. I appreciate you jumping in. You don't always have to jump in, but I appreciate you. I'll yell at you later, Priscilla. But I just wanted everybody to kind of get a catch up. Where's my brain? Why have I been doing the other videos? I want you to seriously look at how people respond to those videos. I don't delete comments. Now, that being said, if someone private messages me or finds me somewhere, sends me something, they want to have a private conversation, I'm not going to drag it. I'm not going to post it for the world to see. If someone says something super insightful, I might block their name out and share it, but I'm not like going to show you all the nastiness I get because it's just not worth it. But watch the people that Like for me, I'm really wanting to communicate. I want people to sit down and genuinely talk to me as a person, and let's try to understand each other and bring this nation back together. And they become so hostile if they even think I am not interpreting the world the way they are. And the first thing they attempt to do is say, I'm not going to watch you anymore. I'm taking my energy away from you. As if they think if they don't watch my videos, I will stop doing them. I didn't start them for you. I started them for me. So I don't think you understand the momentum. Thank you, Snuggle, for tuning in. I appreciate your time. But I really want to have these conversations. But I also want to show you that the more I want to have conversations, the less people will allow me. They'll just attack. And so I just want to show you that this is, a catch-22. We can't repair this nation without communication. But we can't communicate with only one side of the party communicating. So we need to work on this. It's something both sides need to work on. And I'm not for either side. I think I'm kind of dead in the middle, to be quite honest, because I think polarized left and polarized right are equally wrong. And they use the same tactics just for a different end. They just have a different end game. And they're both wrong and normally go against what society should be, which is beneficial to everyone within it. So I just, I'm trying to express this and give you, real life thoughts, how I function, how I process, how I think, where I get my information, where you can get your information, so that you know me, so that when I'm sharing this, you know how I'm making these decisions, why I'm thinking that way, so that you won't just hear the words and put a block, but you'll hear the words and go, okay, well, I understand why she thinks that way because of what she said last week or the week before. So you can grow with me in hopes that I can grow with someone that will actually communicate with me, because so far I've had no one do anything but say they're just I'm taking my power away from you. It's not how that works. You can either comment, you can get me on Instagram under Izzby Waters, Izzby Waters, or you can email me at watersworkload@gmail.com. Y'all, I've never met a human that wasn't worthwhile. So when people in 5 minutes tell me I'm not worthwhile, I'm like, we have very different life experiences. Why? I get bashed a lot because they think I'm just a redneck, but I actually have a master's in psychology, and I've worked in forensic psychology and corrections and counseling for a long time. My health, I have a neuromuscular disorder that is crippling me, so now I'm home, and I'm just trying to reach out and spread some knowledge and love and maybe communicate. Yeah, if you can't communicate, what can you do? Nothing. Communication. We are humans. We develop this language because it's how we communicate. Now, we still give off a lot of nonverbal cues, body language, that if you're physically talking to somebody, you can see, which is why I prefer to do live, so that you can see my body and see my movements and see my face. And because written word, it can be interpreted emotionally sometimes. So if you hear me say it, you can hear the emotion I put in it, and maybe it's not going to be misinterpreted. It's watersworkload@gmail.com. And so I like live so that you can see me, see how I'm processing, flowing, functioning, my body's working, all those physical cues that I want to see when I communicate as well. Written word is very difficult. It is, but I'm willing to do whatever is comfortable for whoever wishes to communicate and try to meet in the middle. Because if we do not try to humanize the people that we despise, then we are less human ourselves. And I'm just like, do you not understand that? You're welcome. I appreciate y'all for coming here and spending your time with me, because time is precious. I understand that. So I really appreciate everybody that stops by or hits the like button, subs, or leaves a comment. I know, like, if I leave a comment on YouTube, it's because I've really been impacted in some way. So when I get comments, I try to read every one of them, and I try to respond. And even if I don't agree, I probably thank you for your time that you gave me to tell me your perception, your perspective, your viewpoint. I will thank you for that. Because I know You know, I don't like just throwing comments out into the oblivion. I like it when people respond to them. I like to know that I've been heard. I like that validation, so I want to give that validation to people that stop by. Um, I'm interesting. I'm weird. I try to be a good person. I went through, you know, I did not have the best raising. I understand a lot of this book from a personal perspective. Um, and I've had jobs that would have turned other people to stone, but it seems to make me want to learn the human condition even more. Um, so I definitely have a different way of looking at things. And in my late teens, I was, you know, I'm a big burly woman. I was a powerful Amazon in my teen years. I halter broke, show cattle, and trained horses. And I was benching 140, 150 when I was a freshman in high school. I was leg pressing 600. I was strong. I was scary. I was an Amazon princess. And so I walked the world in absolutely no fear because I had been through so much. I had no fear. And then I realized that having no fear is just as bad as being consumed by it. But it took me those years of being, you know, a very almost hostile person to realize that was not who I was intended to be, and that was not healthy either. And so I realized that right then that polarized opposites are just as unhealthy, and it doesn't matter which side you're on. It's just as unhealthy. And we don't want to live in, you know, at the end of each pendulum swing. We want to live in the middle so that we don't, you know, the roller coaster ride is not as bad. And that's where humanity can, you know, have compassion, care about each other, and go through their emotions safely without being manipulated. And, you know, so I kind of want a society that respects everyone. I'm going to fight for you know, somebody that's completely different from me. I'm going to fight for their rights too, because if I want rights, I have to allow them to have rights. If I allow somebody to take away their rights, I know that they're going to come after mine next. So I'm going to protect rights because everybody should have them. So I have a very different way of looking at things because I think I was just shaped in a weird way. And when I worked with the people that were in state's custody or in prisons, and I saw the way that they dehumanized them, I immediately began humanizing. I never referred to anybody as their prison number. They always had a name or nickname if they had a quirky personality like me. And I had an 84% success rate. That was unheard of. It was unheard of. The governor was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm dealing with root issues. I'm dealing with the person, not the black and white paper, but the person, you know, that tripped up and made the black and white paper. So if we deal with the person, maybe we won't have any more paper, you know, we have to read the black and white that tells us what happened." And I learned at that point that the healthiest thing you can do to anyone is try to reach out. Whether they'll take your hand or not and do the same thing, you know, you kind of have to take a leap of faith there. So I'm taking a leap of faith. And sometimes that leap of faith does not pay off, and I get absolutely dinged and berated and treated very nasty on this platform. But I'm just here to tell you, you know, people who have been in prison for 20 years for murder can say some really nasty things. So if you can really say something nastier than them, I will award you a prize. So it doesn't really hit me that hard. And I understand that it comes from a place of defense and fear and frustration. And so I try to untangle that knot for you. And I'm not here to make you feel fearful. I'm not here to make you feel defensive. And, you know, I'm definitely not here to manipulate you. Can we sit down and talk? And, you know, and I tell you, don't take everything I say as fact. Do your research. Question everything that any human mouth tells you. That's the safest thing to do. So I don't want anyone to follow me blindly, because I would never want to live my life that way, so I'm not going to expect anyone else to. But I love it when people like announce their leaving, their departure, like an airline. "I'm done with you. I'm leaving your channel." That the woman that was really nasty to me the other day, she said something, and I responded and said, I don't know if that was meant to be an insult or not, but be careful, be blessed, and be careful walking in a world of free thinkers, because you got to understand that not everybody is going to be you. Uniquely. I'm weird. So, but I understand that everybody's not going to be me. And it's because I live in such a small population of a small part of a very disrespected place in America that I understand people, they're not going to be me at all. I know. I've started a few because I do write. I'm actually writing stories right now for a local publication. I do write some. And I did nuclear med transcription, medical transcription for a long time too. That was just something I picked up. I didn't go to school for it. I just picked it up. But Kazi, leave that alone. Dogs. But I don't know. I have a unique way of looking at things because of everything I've been through and everything I've been trained in. And honestly, because I'm from such a small town and I get disrespected so often, because, the stigma of Appalachia and stupid hillbillies and all that, I just kind of embrace it and go on. I mean, it's like context. You should know it says hillbilly heart. You should know I'm going to have probably a little bit more conservative values. But if you ask the people that are in my town, because of my tattoos and the jobs I've had, I am more left leaning. So I don't fit anywhere, and that's okay. I don't think that you can really just peg somebody. I think that people, they maybe may move as they make decisions. And so that's why I don't like labels. Labels are great to diagnose and get insurance payments for. That's great. That's helpful. That's beneficial to people that suffer from those things so that we can profile it and get them treatment, and the labels help. Otherwise, labels suck. And they're completely inconsistent with how humanity is supposed to function. And so I just I take life daily. I do have, my disorder is terminal. It's affecting my organs. It will eventually take me out, but it's like long-term terminal. So it's kind of like MS. You don't know when and what's going to happen. It's just whatever the neuro issue is that affects you. And it has progressed over the last 16 to 18 years. And it progressed a lot after I had the injuries from work. It seemed like it just kind of advanced it a lot. And so maybe I think like I need to fix something quicker because I may not be here longer. Or maybe I'm just trying to brain vomit so that maybe I'm leaving something that will help somebody someday. That could completely be part of what I'm doing. I think it plays a factor into how I respond to people as well. But I certainly don't play games. Like if I need to have a boundary with you, I will make a boundary. It's like the neighbor that lives way up the road. She got irritated with the other neighbor, and they were like, we don't live close, so it's like when there's like a battle royale going on, and so I guess that she thought that she was going to string her family across the road and catch the other neighbor when she's leaving out her road, one way in, one way out, and whoop her. Well, what she didn't know is it wasn't the other neighbor came down the road, it was me. And so I topped the hill, and they're strung across the road. I didn't bat it. I just got out of my Jeep and stood up and said, do we need to have a problem? Because I'm prepared to have a problem. And she's like, oh, no. And I was like, if it wasn't meant for me, whoever you're meaning to do this to, let me tell you, it's criminal. You're going to get in trouble. You should not do this. You at your age should know better. This is not behavior that you should role model for your children. And so I have no problem, getting a soapbox and getting on top of it, but that's not where I want to live. I would rather have you come at me with curiosity and compassion and have an actual discussion than have to, be businesslike and hard-edged. I just am more of I'm going to hug you no matter if I like you or not. And that's just how I am. And when I would take the juveniles that were in the wilderness camp, when they would get like weekend home visits, and I would take them and put them on a plane to fly from Tennessee to California, I would hug them. And they were like, Miss Liz, you don't have to hug me. I said, I'm putting you on a tin can in the sky. I'm hugging you. And they'd be like, okay. And that's just how I'm made. And I'm hoping that maybe because I am so well received normally, that maybe I will grasp onto a few people of an alternate belief and be able to have that dialogue and communication so we can start to understand each other. Because the language that AOC was speaking during her last little menstruating person's vendetta thing, it was toxic, it was controlling, it was manipulative, and it was meant to separate, segregate, destroy. You can't even say women anymore. And so it's frustrating, and I want to know why, what's the end game? What's the goal? What's going on? I need to know why this is occurring, what importance it validates within you or within your life, and why it's so necessary. Because in my world, descriptors are that. They're descriptors. They're not so important that I will bum rush somebody because they, like I was in the store like last month. I don't go to the store often. I was in the store last month. And I'm a big burly woman. And I rounded the corner and I bumped a boy with my shoulder and I said, "Excuse me." And I do have a deeper voice sometimes. "Excuse me." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And he went, "Oh, ma'am." I said, "It's okay. Happens a lot." And it does. I am built. If I have on a ball cap from the back, you'd think I'm a man. It happens a lot. It didn't hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny. I understand that it could hurt somebody tragically, especially if they've had a very rough youth. We're dealing with dysphoria and stuff. I understand that. I've dealt with people and had them in counseling for that. But there has to be somewhere in the middle that we can talk about this without putting our emotions slap on the table too. Because emotions trip people up. And the best way to come at things is not emotional. So if I get highly emotional, I go, "Oh, I'm going to walk away for a few minutes and think about this." Like the news stories that came out the other day. And I just thought there were 3 random stories. And I said 2 of them is going to take me a couple weeks to digest and make a determination on. This is how I see it. This is how I understand it. This is how I'm taking it in. I wanted y'all to understand that sometimes it takes me up to a month or 2 to make a decision on something if it's a long-term, really deep thinker. And some things that I think are more transparent and, kind of the cheap layer on top, like the AOC story, I can make a decision fairly quickly on. And I wanted you to understand how I process that and how it comes out. So that was my intention for that video. And these are healthy skills that anybody can do. They're certainly not going to harm you. They're not going to impede thought. They're going to create thought. And that shouldn't be scary or harmful to anybody. So that's what I'm here to do. Everybody wants me to be a true crime channel. I don't mind speaking up about true crime or talking about the psychology behind it or the legal issues or, that's fine. I don't mind answering those questions and being that person too. But true crime is not where my heart is. My heart is in mending the societal issue that we seem to have to where, we can dismiss people as vermin just as quickly as the Romans and the Kulaks and the Holocaust. Go in my last video where I'm driving. Down in the description, there's a link to the after school video with Jordan Peterson who goes through the Kulak issue. And tell me if it does not sound so familiar right now. And leave me a response. Tell me when you view that. It's just like a short little 7 or 8 minute video, and it's drawn. It's very fun to watch, but it's a very deep story. It's a very deep educational historical story. And listen to it, and then tell me how it struck you. Because I tell you in the video kind of how it makes me feel about things. Tell me how it struck you. And then we can start understanding kind of where we come from and how we communicate and how we can make that communication better. But it's not going to happen if we don't do it. If we don't start, it's never going to occur. So definitely go check that out. And if you go to After School, it's school spelled with a K, and it's one of the last ones they posted in the last couple of days with Jordan Peterson. And it's great. It's very educational. I would say everybody needs to watch it. Yeah, the Gabby case. I'm not like, I don't like jump on cases and spit out stuff. I sit back and I watch them, especially ones that are strange like this. But have you noticed how there have been a lot more strange cases or a lot more hostile or really off the cuff behaviors that manifest into physical damage or physical harm to somebody? Have you noticed how the world has become way more aggressive in the last few months? Like when we were all apparently locked down, we were like knitting these hysterical hate filters that we were going to put on and walk back into the world with. Some people knitted way too much. But I said on Facebook when we were in lockdown, society will forever be changed by how we walk back in and we relate to each other. And people were like, "Oh, you're stupid. We're just going to pick life back up." I said, "We will never pick life back up." I said, we're going to recreate society and reshape it with how we learn to interact again because we have forever been changed. Oh, no. And now they're like, "Oh my God, Elizabeth, how did you know that?" It's psychology. I can see it. It's happened several times before in history. This This was an occurrence that I'm not going to say where it came from. It was just an occurrence that came in very handy to become a wedge issue to cause an emotional manipulation, segregation, power that was, powerful, that was beneficial to someone. And we all need to understand that as much of a free thinker as we all think we all put a ring in our nose when we react emotionally. So don't do that. You'll be easily led anywhere if you allow your emotions to dictate your thought all the time. So people say, well, when you start talking about psychology, you turn cold. I do turn cold because psychology is very cold. You have to toss the emotion away. Because I can't tell you about psychology if it's emotion based, because that's not psychology. That's my emotional perception of psychology. And psychology is a very cold, cruel, harsh view that is often very honest, and it can seem, kind of really nasty when you deal with the books and the labels and they don't cut around the corners. They just diagnose and tell you what's wrong with somebody and go on. They don't cut any corners. They also treat them as a person because they're worthwhile no matter what they're dealing with. There's none of that in the psychology manuals. It's just bleh. And it's just harsh, nasty truth that we're going to have to deal with that person. And so when I go into a psychology mind, I do cut my emotions off. Because some of the things I have to say can't be said with emotion, or they will be misinterpreted or used in the wrong way or spun. And I become very cold. And that's how I was in court too. I became very cold. I cut the emotion off. So when people want me to be emotional, I go, no. What do you want from me? Because I understand why you want emotion, because emotion makes me more malleable. It makes me more easily manipulated. So I'm not going to give you that, but what else are you wanting from me? If you're wanting emotion, what's the end goal? So something for y'all to think about. Deep Thoughts with Liz, apparently. This is this afternoon's title. But use the CDC COVID tracker to get stats all over the U.S., all over the country, every county and every state you can get. Don't let people tell you and then you absorb information that's not true. Go find out for yourself. If you want to know the hospitalization trends, Google Johns Hopkins weekly hospitalization trends, and they'll show you non-COVID beds, COVID beds, and the remaining ICU beds, regular beds, ICU beds. They cut them into so many different categories with graphs you can see, and they'll show you the weekly change between numbers. You can track it. Track it for the last year. Track the political issues for the last year. All the mountains match up. Pay attention to these things. Question everything, even things I tell you. Don't take anything that anyone says as fact. Research it. Do your own research. Make your own formed opinion about it. But start to follow these sites so that you don't have to digest what the media is telling you. You can go and get it yourself. You get the same records that they're getting, but they put a twist on it and give it to you. Just go and look it up for yourself so that you don't have to deal with somebody's twist. It just makes it so much easier, And we should not be fighting about this. There is just cold, hard facts and data that should answer everybody's question about how dangerous this is, how dangerous it isn't, how successful the vaccines are, how not successful they are. The data showing up from Israel, the UK. Why are we not talking about this? Why are we not allowed? Why can Nicki Minaj not even question having a question? Why can she not even tell somebody to think about it and pray? Don't be bullied. Why is that bad now? And I'm like, it's like, why are we putting these limits on certain people but allowing other people to run with certain stories? And what's the emotional manipulation? Why do you need us in such a hyper emotional and controllable state? Why does my fear threshold have to be right here when I'm used to living with it out here? Well, I'm easier manipulated when it's up here because I'm just latching onto anything that I see as leadership because I'm in a heightened emotional state. So I've learned to push my back so that no matter how scared they want to make me feel, my fear threshold is always here. And I'm going to look at it from afar before I make any determinations. And that's just kind of how I live. So, and you can learn to do that. At 30 minutes to an hour every day, talking to yourself about your biggest fears, making rational assumptions, making lists, reminding yourself that we often put things in the worst case scenario when we think about them, that our mind automatically goes there. It's how humanity works. And they use trigger words because trigger words bring up images in your mind, which brings out emotions. How to not trigger yourself. What words, when you see them, you know you need to reread it and make sure that you understand you're being triggered, and try to understand what's being said in the sentence rather than the emotion you're feeling. You just got to retrain yourself how to interpret the information that's coming at you. And I try to do that. Though I fail miserably some days, and I'm terribly emotional. And there are some days I get up and I'm like, I'm not conducive to society, and I'm not going online today. Because I'm not my best person today. And those are the days I shut my mouth. It is, yeah. It's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, I'm going to go because I've got to start some dinner and going to have to rest for a minute and then start some dinner and do some stuff. I'm going to have another quiet night at home with my daughter just to catch up a little bit. So over the next couple of days, beginning next week, I will try to send out a few more pre-planned videos. I'm going to try to do some funny stuff too, because when I deal with heavy stuff, I have to be funny. So expect some funny stuff thrown in. But please communicate, share. And if someone is super nasty to you, you know, if they just come on and there's absolutely not going to communicate, it's all nastiness, they will go bye-bye. But if we're absolutely communicating, even if we get our feathers ruffled sometimes, we can still communicate. So let's try to communicate and start a dialogue and start to understand each other better. Because this world is not going to improve unless we learn how to fix what we broke. And right now, our language is broken. And if we do not fix our language, then humanity will be lost, because humanity depends solely basically on communication and language. Sadly, we have limited ourselves to that capacity. So we're going to have to learn how to get back in that. Thank you. I will. She's 22, almost 23, so, but I still remember the diaper bill. So, but y'all have a good evening. Have a wonderful day. Do something that makes you smile and laugh. And try not to take things so seriously, but if it's something you need to be serious about, try to remember not to be emotional. Well, thank you. I hope you have an awesome day too, and I appreciate all of your time. I know time is very worthwhile. It's something that's hard to give to people, so I appreciate everybody that spends time with me, and I really appreciate the comments and the feedback and the communication. So everybody have a blessed end of the weekend, and I will catch up with you maybe at least by Tuesday afternoon. I'll be back.